Hi, welcome to the first video snippet from the video novel Deadly Affirmations. This novel's a little different probably from what you expect, but I think you're going to enjoy it and have some fun. So if you're sitting comfortably, we can begin. Chapter 1. Start with small steps. Patience Murphy was in a blue funk. Mondays were supposed to suck, but it was miraculous that she had made it through this Monday without punching anyone in the throat. When that jerk Paul had told her that he was leaving her for that little tramp from his office, the funk was a delicate robin's egg, and she had eaten a gallon of Ben & Jerry's Chunky Monkey ice cream. When Robbie Daniels, that little brown-nosing shit, got her promotion, the one she had been putting in extra 15 hours a week for, planning, creating, and sweating over for the past 6 months, her funk had deepened to an intense ultramarine, and she pulled out her beat-up, lawsuit-era Takamine 12-string guitar. She had bought it because it was a dead-on copy of a Guild 512, which she couldn't afford. She had thought for a moment and strummed a chord, and then she knew what to sing. Dylan's Idiot Wind, dedicated to Robbie. Idiot wind blowing every time you move your teeth. You're an idiot, babe. It's a wonder that you still know how to breathe. And then the octave G string broke, whizzing past her face, the end lightly scratching a thin, bloody line in her cheek. When she had decided that she needed a night out, dancing and drinking and she had slipped into her favorite red dress, and the zipper had stuck and then broken in her whirling attempts to free the little teeth that she could take it off, her funk darkened to a seething indigo. She flopped back onto her bed and cried herself into calmness. When her hands had finished shaking, she tried the zipper again, and after 5 minutes of agonizing writhing, she decided that she was never going to wear that dress again and pulled it apart at the seams, freeing herself. That was when Patience decided that she needed a change in her life. She drove into town and found a place to park right in front of the very upscale coffee shop, the kind she would never normally enter. She walked in and scanned the menu board. After a minute, she walked up to the heavily inked young woman at the counter, trying not to stare at the huge gauges that were once the girl's earlobes, and ordered a Gibraltar Espresso Campana, a drink way too hip for her to order. And she waited for her coffee. Patience struggled to ignore the annoying didgeridoo and harp duet oozing from the hidden speakers in the ceiling. When her number was called, she thanked the barista and walked out into the too bright for her mood daylight, with a cup of coffee that cost as much as she would normally pay for a ticket to the movies and a big tub of popcorn. It was a beautiful late afternoon, the sidewalks filled with happy families, solid fathers and perky moms straight out of the photos at La Redoute or Zara, and herds of bright, shiny, immaculate toddlers and preschoolers, clingy lovers, young and old, and an assortment of buskers, balloon artists, face painters, and an occasional surly skateboarder. Patience walked along the sidewalk, letting the shop windows flow past her. She passed collections of kitchen utensils, slinky women's underwear, and obscure power tools. She lingered in the window of a stationery store, eyeing papers and pens and planners and letter-writing kits, until a severe young woman behind the window sneered at her. She hurried to the next shop, full of candles and incense, and then passed an open door to a florist's, almost allowing the gentle aromas to guide her inside. She finished the coffee and tossed the empty cup in a trash bin in front of a bookstore. A bookstore. Maybe something in print would help ease her mind. She walked into the little building, past the magazines, past the new releases, past the cooking books, past the biographies, past the science fiction and manga and role-playing games with dragons and well-muscled barbarians gracing their boxes, past the romances with the well-muscled rogues and fainting maidens gracing their covers, back to way in the back where the inspirational books were stashed. She touched a gilt-edged Bible, burgundy leatherette with golden Gothic letters stamped on the spine. There were 4 or 5 editions of the Vedas, one a paperback with a glossy cover, painting of the four-faced manifestation of Brahma, a number of serious copies of the Talmud, and one idiot's compendium of Judaic tradition, law, and legend. One shelf jammed with the Tao Te Ching, the I Ching, the Analects of Confucius, and the Guru Granth Sahib, and another shelf holding the various editions of the Quran, the Book of Mormon, and a copy of the Satanic Bible with stamped metal covers and a small padlock keeping it shut. In a larger section, with almost triple the shelf space of the religious texts, self-help books jostled each other for supremacy. On the shelf at eye level, paperbacks instructing how to organize your life vied with more solidly bound tomes explaining How to Improve Your Life. The shelf above offered horoscopes and palmistry. The shelves below held pamphlets and booklets and manuals and handbooks and monographs and a textbook or two on yoga, dreams, Wicca, reflexology, aromatherapy, crystals, and a photographic essay on tantric sensuality. Patients had no idea what this was about, picked up the heavy coffee table-sized book, opened it to a random page, saw what it was about thanks to a very detailed digital photograph, made a small squeak of surprise and titillation, and promptly dropped the book on the floor. She gently kicked the book under a conveniently close bookshelf. When she had turned around, trying to hide her consternation, she bumped into a table on which was displayed a cunning pyramid constructed of boxes of cards. She reached into an unsealed sample box and pulled out a card. It read, "Life likes to be taken by the lapel," and told, "I'm with you, kid, let's go." Maya Angelou. Patients smiled at the good words, put the card back into the box, and picked up an open box, looking at the back. Quote, "Affirmative statements are the thumb we can put on the scales of everyday life, providing the positive thoughts to balance the negative experiences and ideas that life throws at us every day." End quote. Patients held on to the little box and turned again to look at the books on the shelves. She decided to concentrate on the books that promised to help her change her life. "The Lord knows I could use a change," she thought. She looked for a while, and then saw a book with a sunshiny yellow cover entitled 20 Days to a Happier You. That sounded pretty good. She opened the book and read the introduction. Quote, "Do you want to change your life? Are you ready to discover a new you? The advice in this book will get you started. The rest is up to you." End quote. That was good enough for Patience. She took the book and the box of cards to the counter and paid for them. The salesgirl put them into a pretty lavender bag and smiled cheerfully at Patience. Patience smiled back and said, "Thank you, have a good day." Patience was on her way to a new Patience. She left the bookstore and walked back to her car. She still had shopping to do, but as soon as she picked up some groceries, drove home, and put them away, she planned to dive into the book and cards she had bought and begin her new life. She drove over to Hoffman's Market and tried to find a place to park in the lot. She drove around 4 times and then saw a little red Miata pulling out of a space just ahead. Patience stopped and put on her turn signal, waiting for her turn. As the sports car turned and headed toward her, passing her on the left, a big dusty blue Suburban pulled into her spot. That asshole! She thought about the lack of justice and pushy entitled jerks and about flipping him the bird, but she was better than that. And by then she had found a space 2 rows over. When she got out of her car and walked toward the store, she saw that the driver of the Suburban hadn't turned off the big car yet and was texting on a cell phone. The stereo was blaring some kind of bass-heavy, vaguely bro-country, obnoxious noise, and the car was shuddering with the rumbling of the engine and the thumping of the bass and drums, which was so loud that the ground shook, and the speakers buzzed as they distorted the signal. Patience felt anger build inside her, and later she could not have explained exactly why she had done what she did. She walked over to the driver's side rear quarter panel of the Suburban, intending to give the driver a piece of her mind. But before she got to the driver's window, she saw the fuel filler door. The jerk had left it open. On any other day, she would have thoughtfully closed it. Today was different. She reached under her skirt and found her cotton slip. She tore a strip off by the hem, opened the fuel cap, wadded up the strip of her slip, and stuck it in. She reached into her purse and took out her little blue Bic lighter, set the end of the slip alight, and then walked to the store to pick up the items on her list. The vegetables were just to the right of the entrance to the store. Patience grabbed a cart and proceeded down the first aisle she came to, past little packs of pre-sliced peppers, cubed butternut squash, and enough asparagus for one. While she was examining the artichokes, she found one that felt dense and heavy in her hand. Its dusty green leaves clung together, and the stem was as green as the leaves, a ripe one. Then she found another, and then 2 more. She moved down the vegetable aisle to the tomatoes and then to the cucumbers. That's when the floor shook, and she heard an explosion. All the shoppers rushed to the front of the store to look out over the parking lot. Patience walked there too and saw the big Suburban was now spewing black smoke and was engulfed in a wild, roiling upheaval of flames. If fire were a sound, this burning would be a symphony. Patience smiled a tiny, satisfied smile and went back to the vegetable aisle to gently squeeze some avocados. Guacamole. She finished finding all of the items on her little list: lettuce, onions, 3 Granny Smith apples, bananas, bread, yogurt, OJ, toilet paper, a little frozen spinach souffle, and a bottle of dish soap, and got in line to pay. As she put her groceries on the conveyor belt, she saw a little box of dark Belgian chocolate, somehow lost in the Hershey bars, and Snickers and Kit Kats and gum and mints. She grabbed that little package of delight with the intention of snacking on the ride home. By the time she had paid for her groceries and left the store, the flaming SUV had been extinguished. The volunteers were putting their equipment back into the truck, and the police were assisting the paramedics in moving the charred husk of what once was the driver into an ambulance on its way to the morgue. And a wood thrush, sitting on a branch of the tree next to what had been the Suburban, burst into song as she walked to her car. Patience smiled, maybe at the sound of the little bird's song, maybe at the thought that, with Patience's help, a little part of the world had been set right.